and welcome to Strength-Based Marketing. I'm Pat Dewar. I'm so excited that you're here, and I hope that you get some really great ideas on ways that you can grow your business out of this COVID-19 lockdown. If you like the ideas, I encourage you to, one, let us know that you tried something and what the results were. Share it with other friends and folks and invite them to Strength-Based Marketing, the Facebook group, because I really want to get really bright minds together to share ideas on how to grow business. I don't believe that anyone has the answer to all of the different scenarios that are out there to grow business. I think that as a group, we have a massive impact that we can offer to those that are really trying to impact their community and their culture and their nation and the world. And so that's the intent. I am so excited about my guest today. His name is Steve Reed. And Steve and I have known each other for like 20 years ish, pretty close. And I'm really honored to have him on the show, because I remember when he came to me and he said, I got an idea. And I went, I think that's a great idea. And, you know, we talked a bit, and I love Steve because he's a massive implementer. The guy does not understand get information and sit on it, because information without implementation is a waste of time. This guy understands information with implementation creates transformation, and that's what he is all about, is transformation. Welcome to the show, Steve. Thanks for being here.
Pat, I am so excited to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah. One of the things that I want to get into is that, you know, you're a speaker like I am. I'm sure were massively impacted. I was literally recalled from Marquette, Michigan, of all places. I was out there a couple of months ago, and I got this email, you're coming home. And I went, whoa, that's interesting. And so 48 hours later, this universe was all that we could do. Was webinars and, you know, GoToWebinar and Zoom and WebEx and whatever video conferencing tool that they used. But out of that, a lot of us had to go, wow, one, we're touching hundreds of people a couple of times a week rather than 50 to 70 people on a daily basis, live and in person. And so it was a different structure. And so I want to know, one, how has it impacted your business? And then beyond that, what are you doing? You know, what did you do? What are you doing that is that's setting up for and relaunching your business that normally is face-to-face, more on an internet application? So, Steve, let's hear it. What's going on?
Sure. Well, Pat, it's kind of interesting because all of this started to fall into place almost a year ago. I've been doing life coaching for a bunch of years, and you know, some of the coaching that you and I have done synonymously in the past, but I really shifted my business model to more of a coaching, individual as well as some marriage coaching. And last summer, I was asked if I did any long distance coaching. And I said, well, it depends on what you mean. And well, my daughter is getting married and she lives in Denver, but I'm in Dallas. And can you coach them? I said, yeah, there's this really cool thing called Skype. And I fell in love with coaching this young couple using Skype. And I thought, I've got to figure out ways to do that. So one of the downsides with my coaching practice in the past is I don't coach women alone. I mean, for safety reasons and out of respect for my wife, I don't coach women alone. But I can coach women now using Zoom, and I don't have to be there face-to-face with the person, and I can see exactly what's going on. So last summer, last fall, I started moving more and more of my practice in the direction of doing either telephone or video conferencing. And I had made the decision in January that I was going to go almost exclusively through doing video type programs. And the plan was I was going to have it set to go, launch everything, big flash and so forth. June 1st, that was going to be my kickoff. And then March happened.
Exactly.
I guess I'm starting now. So, and the funny thing is, Pat, when I started doing this and I started putting the pieces together, I was talking with a friend who's in the marketing world here in the Dallas area, and she says, well, meet me in my Zoom room on such and such a day. I said, oh, okay, that's fine. So I was expecting several people there, and they were having technical difficulties and so forth. So it ended up, it was just the two of us that were talking. And she says, well, have you seen anything about NTI? And I said, what's an NTI? She says, well, it's Networking Today International. I said, okay. She says, you know, you're familiar with BNI. I said, well, yeah, who isn't? She says, well, it's like a BNI group without all of the restrictions. For instance, in this particular group, you can have 2 or 3 different insurance people, 2 or 3 different real estate people, 2 or 3 different coaches, whatever, and they all live homogenously. I mean, there's no competition per se. And they just in January launched their online platform. Prior to that, it was individual local meetings, but they launched their online platform. So I said, well, that's kind of interesting. She says, well, let me introduce you to the founder of the company. So she got me on a conference call with him and his executive vice president, and we're doing a 3-way call now. It's like, oh my gosh, this is cool. So you're telling me I can go to any of these different rooms. If I sign up as a member, I can go to any of these rooms and just crash the room. Yeah, absolutely, but you're being welcomed in. So for instance, this morning I was in the St. Louis area.
Nice.
But I didn't leave McKinney. Yesterday I was in Knoxville, Tennessee, and before that I was in Nashville. And earlier in the week I was up in the Detroit area. Tomorrow I'm going to be in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. So I can do all of these things from the comfort of my home office. And as a result, I'm making some incredible connections with people, and people are now starting to call me because they, as we've all heard, know, like, and trust. They've seen me enough. They know who I am. They like who I am, hopefully, and they're starting to trust me. So I'm starting to get the phone ringing because of these networking groups. And they're anywhere from 6 or 8 people in a group to 20, 25, 30 people in a group. And so I'm developing those kinds of relationships. Well, along the way, they give you an opportunity to do a 10-minute spotlight.
Nice.
Okay, that's a great thing that I can do also. So, and I've heard everything but every kind of company, whether it's text marketing or it's website development or nutritional supplements or fitness programs, whatever. And so everybody's learned how to do PowerPoint through this media, and it has been absolutely fabulous. Well, in the process, and I don't know if you and I have talked about this, I don't think we have. Last summer, Tom Ziegler, our friend, launched his first book, Choose to Win. And he put the call out that he was looking for coaches for his coaching system.
Nice.
Well, having been friends with Tom and Cindy and Julie and so forth for years, I was invited to be one of the first coaches in the Choose to Win program.
Nice.
So now what I've done is every Thursday at 12:30 Central Time, I do a 1-hour coaching session that's free of charge. And I'm going through the Ziegler Choose to Win coaching system and just having an absolute blast giving to the people that are coming into the room. And so while for a lot of people, the whole virus thing, they're shut down, my business is actually expanding during this whole time period because I'm able to touch people's lives in other ways. And I'm coaching people literally around the country that I wouldn't normally have been coaching because of the relationships I've been able to make through Networking Today International.
Wow, that's a great tip. I mean, I think about all of us, like for the last couple of years, I've wanted to move away from being so dependent on a single client.
Exactly.
I have a client that sends me and several other trainers around the country, all over the country. And I've seen all 50 states and talked to thousands of people and you know, doing close to 200 workshops a year. Well, that one is fairly exhausting. And two, your that's a dependence where you're kind of putting all your eggs in one basket. So I've
Yeah.
developed my book and the website, the do
Yep.
a 10K businessstrategies.com, and it's got a lot of autoresponders in it. So I feel it. And this, it just kind of accelerated everything to where, okay, a couple of days a week you're working for your client. What are you doing the rest of the time?
Yep.
And I knew that a lot of businesses were trying to figure out how to get their business back into the marketplace. But
Yeah.
as you know, Steve, this is the new normal.
It is.
Some people say, when are we going to get back to the way it was? And I go, never.
I hope not.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, but even beyond that, think about it, Steve. When we're going to want to go to a live event is when we're going to want to go back to a movie theater.
Yeah, exactly.
That's going to be about the same time. Now, that's going to
Exactly.
probably be, it may be a little while, but that doesn't mean that people don't need your services.
Right.
And one of the things I love about what you've done, you took a concept of the life coaching and working with Ziegler, but I love where it started, is that you had an idea for a book.
Yeah.
And out of that book, you developed a speech. Right. and a speaking business. And out of that speaking business, you were able to develop some real life coaching. And so it's been a lot of fun watching you. Now, do you have more than one book now? I saw that you held two up earlier.
I've got two now. Yeah.
Okay. So your first one was?
My Half Brother was the first book, and that was the one that you I don't think I ever really shared with you, but you affirmed or confirmed the things that were going through my mind. When we sat down over coffee back in 2014, I think it was, and I was sharing with you the concept. My half brother, it's a story of Christ from the perspective of his half brother James. And you said, you need to get yourself a costume. You need to have, 3 or 4 different presentations, one that's 5 minutes, one that's about 15 minutes, and one that's another, maybe 20 minutes, something like that. Well, my full presentation is actually 100 is an hour and 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I showed one of them. It was one of the first ones that I did. It was a 40-minute presentation, showed it to my mother. And she says, Stephen, how did you do that? You spoke for 30 minutes and you didn't have any notes. I said, well, first of all, Mom, it was 39 minutes and 37 seconds. That's number one. Number two is you and Dad. My dad was a Methodist minister. So they taught me all the Bible stories growing up. And all I did was I just took myself out of the picture and I put Jesus' half-brother James in the picture and I told the stories from that perspective. I said the second side of this is the fact that I've been involved in the Toastmasters organization for nearly 30 years, since the early 90s, and they teach you how to do a 5 to 7 minute presentation. I realized what I did was I did a 5 to 7 minute story, had a segue, another 5 minute story, another segue, another 5 minute story. So now if someone says, hey, Steve, can you come to our church, a retreat, a conference, men's group, whatever, how much time do I have? Well, you've got about 30 minutes. Okay, that's 5 stories with segues. So it's real simple for me to chop things up as easily as possible. So that was the first book. The second book, and with some of the coaching that I've done over the past 25 plus years now, I've had a lot of stories where people come to me very broken and they've got life issues, okay? I had one couple, they were having some issues, some marital issues that were going on. And as it turns out, 25 years earlier, their church had split. And she was not consciously, but subconsciously blaming her husband, blaming the church leadership, but blaming God for allowing this to go through. Well, I had the opportunity to talk with her and help her through that process. And as a result, she became restored. Her husband saw me a couple of weeks later, gave me a huge monster bear hug and says, thank you for giving my wife back to me. So those were the kinds of things. And then somebody else, his grandmother and his mother-in-law both, I hate to say it this way, but they essentially emasculated him. And they took away his manhood. And going through the process of helping him understand who he is, it allowed him to become restored. And now he's a mighty man of God. He's a mighty warrior for God. I mean, that could go on with story after story like that. So about a year and a half ago, I was working on a sequel to the first book, and God said, no, you're going to work on this book. And I'm like, but God, I'm working on the sequel for it. He says, no, you didn't hear me. You're working on this book. So the second book is called Restored by Grace. And it's 10 stories of people that I have coached over the years. Now, all the names are changed. The scenarios are a little bit different. The basic fundamental is there, but it's stories about people that were broken, and God allowed me to help them, coach them through the restoration process so they became effective tools for God once again.
Nice.
So all of that came out of the coaching stuff that I do. So that's the stuff that I love sharing the stories about.
Well, it's fascinating. A lot of people might go, well, Pat, this is strength-based marketing. It's a marketing business. I go, look, every area of your life counts. And if we're broken in any one area, it affects every other area.
Exactly.
I remember when my kids had been taken up north by my ex, which she had every right to do. She moved back to her hometown. Well, I don't know about you, but being separated from your 6 and 2-year-old by 1,000 miles was a nightmare. And I think you'd probably say the same thing. It's a nightmare to be, and that kind of breaking in my life it got to a point, because the only tool in my emotional tool shed was a thing called stuffing it. I don't know if you've ever tried stuffing it, but stuffing it's like taking an inflated beach ball, holding it underwater, expecting it to never come back up, but it always comes back up. And about 10 months of being separated from my oxygen, I was combing my hair one day getting ready for work, and the next moment I'm on the floor, bawling my eyes out. I missed my kids, and I knew I needed to find something that would change that. And I as you know, Steve, if you want to change what you are and where you are, you have to change what goes into your mind from.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Somebody
right.
said that. I kind of think, oh yeah, Zig said that. Both
every
of us
time
have
we spoke.
We both of us have a history with Zig. In 2005, I got to work with Zig as one of his speakers. And so a lot of the training you're coaching, and I love it. I believe that Zig was a man that changed millions and millions of lives for the good, because he got people to say, look, I'm where I am today because of what's gone into my mind. If I want to change that, I have to change what goes into my mind.
Exactly.
And, we went through a program that began to shift that and change what went into our mind. And then you begin to realize that what you believe about yourself is all made up, and you're the author.
Yep.
That if you want to conquer limiting beliefs, which usually are sown into our life at a much younger age.
Yes, very much so.
You got to confront them with the adult truth. And the best thing that I'm so excited about what you've done, Steve, is you took your gifting and you just developed everything in your world around the gifting and have stayed in the gift, because in the gift you never get tired. When I found my internal gift, I denied it. I said, I'm not smart enough to teach. And I went, well, maybe I'll just offer it up. And like you, once you begin to offer that into the world and into the universe around you, it's amazing when there is that authority in that area, that the right word is unction in that area, that everything in your universe will begin to shift around that. And it's like you jump in the river and you flow with the stream rather than fight it. Well, as we move out of this lockdown, what are one or two things that you've seen that have been helpful for you that you would encourage other business owners to really do to take action on, and then we'll close the podcast off today.
Pat, I think you've already said it. This is the new normal, so to speak. And if you think you're going to go back to the way the things were, you can try, but the world has already passed you. So you have to embrace where we are. There's a book that I read years ago, probably 30 years ago. The author was Robert Kriegel. The title of the book is If It Ain't Broke, Break It. And the premise of the book is you can't keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, as people have said, and expect different results. I think it was Albert Einstein that originally said a variation of that. So we have to embrace the fact that we are now living in a Zoom or a WebEx world or a Skype world or a Google Duo world. We are living in a new world. So we have to make the adjustments. So the number one thing that I coach people on a regular basis is embrace what's up in front of you. Don't deny it. Don't run away from it. Embrace it and see how you can modify your process to fit where we are going. And understand, we may never go back to those in-person group meetings. I think we will, but not the way we were. And so embrace that, because I wouldn't have the relationships with people in Nashville or Knoxville or Detroit or Indianapolis or St. Louis or whatever around the country that I have today. I was just a little side note, but it's all relevant. Was talking with one of the guys that I met in Nashville, and we did a one-to-one meeting that actually lasted 3 hours.
And they're done
when
that.
we were done with that meeting, we're looking at each other saying, there is something that God has put together here. A couple of weeks later, we're on another meeting. He sends me a private message in that meeting. He says, you and I need to talk some more, because I think we need to do some accountability stuff. And today, as a result of this 2-month process of growing with these people, I have developed a new, I'm not going to say best friend, but awful dang close, because we embrace the new technologies and new processes, and we realize that we're both in the same place. So let's go together in strength. And that's what I love about what's going on today. So my thing is, embrace the future, embrace what's in front of you. Don't be afraid of it. I mean, one of the things, and I know you heard Zig say this many times, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly until you learn to do it well. Well, when I started in early March doing my Zoom meetings, I did it very poorly, but I learned how to do it. Now I do a pretty good Zoom meeting. So, but that's the thing. Don't be afraid, because when you're locked in the fear, and I don't know if it was Zig said this, I know he said it, but fear is false evidence appearing real. And if we get bogged down in, oh, gosh, I want to go back to the way it was. No, you don't. Embrace what's up in front of you. Yeah. And that's, I'll leave it with this. When you're driving down the road, you've got a big windshield in front of you. You get a little tiny rear view mirror. It's done that way for a reason. Because God wants us to move forward, not look backwards all the time.
You can't. Your destiny is not behind you.
No, it's not. It's so true.
That's
so true.
So, hey, folks, thanks so much. I know we probably went a few minutes over. I try to keep these pretty short. I just encourage you, take action. Don't be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. If nothing else, you purchase wisdom, and it's okay. Move forward anyways. Hang in there. We're all in this together, as they say. And this is Pat Dewar on Strength-Based Marketing, really trying to help you take the information and encourage you to implement so that you can create the transformation that you want. Because without action, nothing takes place. It's been an honor serving you guys today. Hey, if you like this stuff, share it. Tell somebody about it. And let us know how we can serve you better. Thanks for being a part of the Strength-Based Marketing Group, gang.